Today is the third lecture in the herbology series. So now this one, it brings together everything that we've done, all the protocols. I thought very hard about how to introduce herbs and herbal formulations, and the best way that I found was by grouping them together. So that's how I'm presenting it. Otherwise, it's very, very hard to understand if you start cramming them. It's hard. So let's start with a little review of what we did in last lecture. We talked about how Dravya comes from the Sanskrit root dhru. It means any substance or ingredient which has a quality. Each Dravya has a Pancha Mahabhutic composition, so it's either high in either ether or air or fire or water or earth. So it has a Pancha Mahabhutic composition. And of course, when we are using Dravya, we are using the theory of like, dissimilar, and similar. Dravya is classified in many types, and we are focusing on Dravya, its karma, guna, and prabhava. And Dravya in Ayurvedic context usually means not just herbs and plants and spices and nutrition, but also minerals. Okay, let's talk about the treatment protocols. So first thing, when we are checking a person's, when you're giving a person a protocol, the first thing we always want to make sure that we detoxify them and cleanse them and make sure they're ready. So in order for anyone to be ready for a treatment, you always we always balance the dosha first, because what is sama dosha, sama dhatu, sama agnishcha. So we are always wanting to balance the dosha. The person comes to you, don't just start giving them herbal formulations. You always put them on a diet first. You prepare their mind and body, and then you balance their doshas, balance their agni, balance their ama before giving any kind of rasayanas or tonics. So I've taken some random, it's not limited to these, I've just put some here. So for vata, the rasa of the herb usually should be, and it's a generic rule, sweet, sour, salty. And it is not necessary the virya is always warming. The virya could always also be cooling, as long as the prabhava is a vata pacifying. That is the most important thing. But this is generic. So when you're looking at herbs and you look at their rasa virya, at the end of the day, it should be vata pacifying. And remember, the principle of Ayurvedic Dravya is we do not give a single herb. The only herbs that we give singularly are rasayanas, tonics. And we always give herbs with anupana, or vehicle that carries the herbs to the dhatus. So pitta, the herb or spices, should be sweet and bitter and drying, cooling. And at the end of the day, even if it's heating, at the end of the day, it should pacify the pitta. Kapha, the herbs, the dravya should be bitter, pungent, astringent, scraping, drying, and lightening effect. At the end of the day, the herb that a kapha takes should scrape it, dry it, light it. So it's almost the opposite of vata. But remember, when it comes to prabhava, there are herbs that work on BP, there are herbs that work on PK, there are herbs that work on VK, but they may not necessarily have a cooling or a warming virya, or may have the opposite rasa. But we are most concerned when we're giving an herb or a combination of herb, what is the ultimate prabhava, what is the ultimate action and the karma on the particular dosha. Usually you will see, one or two doshas are out of balance in the vikruti. So the first thing is you bring the dosha into balance. So now let's start looking at these herbs. Okay, let's look at vata. So what happens? See, we have Shilajit, mineral supplements, Shalati, they're all minerals. Why are we advising mineral supplements and minerals to Vata? Why is that? Can anyone tell me? If you attended the December 17th workshop, we did the nails. Do you remember most people with Vata disorders will have their Asti Dhatu? Yes. Vata resides in Asti Dhatu and has an affinity for Asti Dhatu. So whenever Asti Dhatu has less Agni or Asti Dhatu's Agni is imbalanced, then it shows in dry hair and teeth don't work so good and the bones, there are joint pains and the nails show signs of malabsorption and these longitudinal striations. And usually Vata, when we say they need a salty rasa, we don't really always mean salt per se, we mean mineral supplements because Vata can utilize mineral supplements. So Shilajit mineral supplements could be iodine, manganese, potassium, sodium. All of these mineral supplements are good for Vata. So they are all considered really salty rasa. So I've added some rasayanas. For only Vata, if there is no Ama present in a Vata person and they have low energy and they can't move, Vata is the only dosha I just may start off with a little bit of rasayana for them. For example, ashwagandha is technically a rasayana. A rasayana is a tonic. And rasayanas are only herbs and dravya that can be given on their own. Usually everything else is mixed with each other. So I personally would always give a Vata person something like a Chavan Prasha or any kind of rasayana if they're low in energy as long as they have no Ama. But Pitta and Kapha, I don't usually start them off with a rasayana. Brahmi works on the mind. It's a nervine tonic. It also acts as a binding agent for other herbs. So giving Vata Brahmi is good because a lot of Vata problems reside in the mind. And it is to do with the mind. Similarly, Bhringraj is to do with the mind and insomnia. And Shankapushpi is also to do with the mind. So we are giving mineral supplements, also some mineral supplements that help in breaking down the food, help in digestion of nutrients. So Brahmi, Bhringraj, and Shankapushpi all work on the mind. Shankapushpi works on Majjadhatu and the nerves. It's one of the best herbs for nerves. And Vata is related to nerves. Bhringraj is excellent for dry hair, believe it or not. It's also great for insomnia and it's a mental relaxant. Brahmi is a nervine tonic. And Brahmi actually increases clarity of mind. So for a Vata person, I always want to make sure their mind is more normal and then work on their Agni or work on that both together. And of course, Triphala or Triphala Ghee, very, very important. They also might be low in sugar. So sometimes I will, as long as there's no issue, sometimes I'll ask them to take agave nectar or some kind of date molasses or any kind of molasses which is high in minerals. And if they're low in energy, it's good to ask them to take some rasayanas. And Triphala, along with ghee, lots of hot water, will actually help their digestion as well. So this is my particular protocol. It may not be a protocol by any other Ayurvedic Vaidya. This is mine, and this is what my guru, also from the line that I'm coming from, we do that. Any questions? Anybody's a Vata here? Anybody a Vata? Great. So what do you think? Would you want to tackle the mind first before tackling other problems? I mean, some people go straight to just tackling the digestive issues first, then moving to the mind. But if I feel, yes, if your mind is not normal, you need to put, a Vata mind is very much in a Rajasic, it's always moving. And you want to calm the mind down, calm the breath down. And I personally feel that should be one of the first protocols for balancing the dosha. Along, of course, for the digestion, making sure you have mineral supplements and triphala and some rasayana is a good idea. Any questions? Feel free to ask questions. No questions. You already know this, so you're okay if I test you on this, right? Okay. How do you treat a vata kapha? Well, the prabhava of the herb should be VK minus. So we're looking at when you get an herb, it should be VK minus. I'll give you some examples. Okay, let's move on to pitta. So pitta herbs, number one, I have given A for apple, A for amalaki. Amalaki is the best herb for pitta. It's very fat, but try writing with your mouse. Amalaki is Indian gooseberry. No, it is not. Amalaki is bitter, astringent, sour, and sweet. It has 4 rasas. It is pretty much tridoshik, but it is best for pitta. I mean, you do not want to give too much of this to other doshas, but pitta, it is so amazing. It removes excess pitta from entire body, from the dhatus. So if pitta is very high and a person does not respond well to other pitta herbs, then you definitely want to do the amalaki. Now you will notice that triphala is made of amalaki, bibitaki. So now we are moving into Ayurvedic formulations, and haritaki. Excellent herbs. So triphala is one of the most amazing formulations because it is a rasayana, plus it's scraping and detoxifying, a gentle laxative. It's amazing. But what is in triphala that helps what? The amalaki, it helps kapha, it helps vata, but it helps pitta most. Bibitaki again helps all the 3 doshas, but it is a little bit drying effect. So it's mostly, it helps the other doshas, but it helps the kapha most. And haritaki, Hari actually means Lord Hari. Haritaki, one which takes away all your troubles. So it is very vata pacifying. This is why triphala is VKP minus, except when I am doing triphala for a person, the usual formula for a triphala is 1 to 1 to 1. And this is a traditional, if you buy a ready-made triphala herb from anywhere, then this is the formula. One part amalaki, 1 part bibitaki, 1 part haritaki mixed together very nicely. But triphala just doesn't mean you mix 3 dry powders together and you got your triphala. What you need another ingredient that is called an anupana, something that carries. So you can give it with hot water. To kapha, you can give it with raw honey. To pitta, you can give it with aloe vera gel. So, or for vata, you definitely want to give it with ghee or something hydrating. And also the dosage will differ for vata, pitta, kapha. Now let's talk about, when I personally do it, I will make sure if I am giving it to a pitta person, because I make my own triphala, then I kind of just increase. I make it 2 parts amalaki, 1 part bibitaki, 1 part haritaki. If I am giving it to a vata kapha person, so somebody just asked me how do you treat a vata kapha. So I will have 2 parts of bibitaki, 2 parts of haritaki, and 1 part of amalaki. When I am giving it to, and this is my own formula, the way I've learned things, and then I'm giving it to vata person, I make sure there's a little bit more haritaki, 2 to 1 to 1. But that is not a traditional way of doing things. A traditional way of doing things, the actual formula given in the text is 1 to 1 to 1. And then there is something called bhaishajya. What time should it be taken? When you're giving it to a Vata person, you want to give it in during the Kapha time, especially if you want to increase their Kapha. And you want to give it with other Kapha herbs, like you might want to give it with ghee, or you might want to give it with hot water, ghee, other kind of fats, or sticky substances, because you want the herb to go and stick to a Vata. When you're giving it to a Kapha, you might want to give it. Kapha, they usually have a stronger constitution, so you might want to give it empty stomach early in the morning as soon as they wake up. You definitely do not want to do that for Vata, because their digestion and constitution is not as strong as Kapha. If the person has strong constitution, you can give it on an empty stomach in the morning, especially during Vata time for a Kapha person, or a Pitta time. And for someone who has a weaker constitution, it can be given with meals as well. But what is your intention? So we are just talking about Amalaki, Vivitaki, Haritaki, which equals to Triphala. Does everybody understand? See, the traditional formula for Triphala is 1 part, 1 part, 1 part. Yes, but the thing that I've seen is just making herbs is that Triphala is not created equal. You can't just take a Triphala which is not organic, which has been shipped all the way from India, and assume that it has potency. And I've seen this, that I've used herbs from different brands which are not organic, or just from an Indian store which has been lying there for a long time, and it has no potency whatsoever. So I try to use organic blends, organic herbs, or I make sure that it has been already prepared in such a way that the potency is preserved. And how do you preserve the potency? By adding things like sugar or ghee. So things like Triphala ghee, Triphala Ghritam. Triphala Ghritam and Triphala juice, if it's coming from India, has more potency. I gave Triphala from 2 different brands. I'm not going to name them, to a little study that I had done. And one was just a powder of Triphala, which was not organic, but it was freshly imported from India, put on a capsule and given without any anupana. So Ayurvedic herb is not just. And one I gave another brand which was prepared properly with an anupana, with the sugar, and specifically made as it's written in the Ayurvedic text. And both of them were not organic actually, but the one which was prepared properly with anupana worked much better. So herbs are usually, unless it's in a Arishtam form or a Draksha form or a Ghritam form, the only thing that will preserve a potency of an herb is Arista, Draksha, or Ghritam. Arista is a tincture or wine or herbal wine. Ghritam is ghee. So when we have prepared an herb in ghee or herbal wine, it can stay good for 10 years. The potency is preserved. Once we've dried it and we have not done anything in it, even putting it in an airtight container, how we grew it, did we use any pesticides on it? Usually these herbs will get, if you do not give an anupan, the herb gets utilized and broken down in our body just like food. So if our body has malabsorption or we have a problem with Agni, then these herbs do not get absorbed. So making sure that herb has a better absorption rate, we need anupana. So now a lot of pharmacological companies and herb companies have started using these super extracts. For example, one of the most important Ayurvedic herbs has the poorest. Yes, that's why the best way to to utilize and process an herb is you pick the dry herbs and you put it in an airtight container, and you either make a ghritam out of it or you make a blend out of it. There is ghee involved. Most of the Ayurvedic formulation have things like aloe, honey, ghee, things involved that act as a preservative. So that's the best way to preserve herbs, when you actually add a preservative. For example, for making something for children, we'll add sugar. Sugar acts as a preservative. Now, turmeric is, I know this is just an FYI, turmeric is such an important herb, and now it's becoming so mainstream. If you go to the herbal stores, whatever, Whole Foods or any health food store, they're selling turmeric capsules. But I've actually seen people are selling turmeric powder. Now, turmeric powder has a very, very poor absorption rate. It does not get absorbed by the body. So giving an herb with an anupan is so important, it needs to get absorbed. That is why turmeric is best used in food. When we saute turmeric in ghee or safflower oil or sunflower oil or whatever oil that you're using, grapeseed oil, then turmeric, the extract of turmeric, which is called curcumin, this is extracted in it is only extracted in the ghee or any other oil. So that fat is needed to extract the curcumin out of turmeric. And then when you eat the sauteed whatever vegetables which have ghee and curcumin in it, it gets absorbed by the body very quickly, comparatively. Some pharmacological companies, I was reading in one of the American Botanical Council magazines, they've actually started selling the curcumin extract, which is a good idea. I mean, these are expensive herbs. They're $30, $40, but what they've done is they've extracted the curcumin out of the turmeric, and now they're selling the curcumin itself. But it's very expensive. You can just buy regular turmeric and extract it in ghee or oil. So in Ayurvedic herbs, we do not want the herbs to get absorbed as food. If they get absorbed as food, you need a vehicle. So knowing the absorption rate, and the absorption rate depends on a person's agni also. Sometimes I've given herbs to a pitta person, it has no effect because there's so much heat there that it burns up the entire herb. So obviously, even if the issue is giving something like amalaki and cooling diet becomes so important here. We need to make sure that the body will absorb the herb. Then in that case, we can give the herb in an arista or a wine form. Some of the most famous Ayurvedic arista is Dasha Arista, and Ashoka Arista. There are many. These are the two most famous exports from India of the Aristams. These will last for years and years and years. And I have tried making this stuff with vodka and wine, and it's just hard to make it at home. But you can definitely make a tincture. You can extract the herbs in a wine, but it defeats the whole purpose because Aristam is fermented, and it is not so good for pitta nor for vata. But this is the only way if you give a tincture. If a person has completely bad malabsorption, their agni is out of balance, the alcohol in Aristam will make sure that the herb is absorbed and goes directly into the bloodstream. So alcohol carries, the tincture is going to carry the herb directly into the bloodstream, and it does not have to go through this whole process of going to the amashaya, going and getting broken down by bhutaganis, going to the liver. It just goes directly into the stream and goes where it's supposed to go. Another way of giving herbs, you will read in your herbal module, is massaging a person with an herb which has been processed in some kind of anupan and some kind of oil. Another way of taking herb, and not all Vaidyas believe it, where I come from, we believe that if you take ghee early in the morning with hot water and don't eat any grains with it, then any herb which has been mixed with the ghee goes directly to the tissues. This is one train of thought from the line that I've come in. So if you go to another Ayurvedic teacher, they might have another train of thought. So please remember, it's different from teacher to teacher, from lineage to lineage. Since you're in this college, you're in my lineage automatically. But it's just one train of thought. There are others too. Not everybody believes that. Any questions? Absolutely. So we are to assume equal potency. Because these formulas, to give you an example, we are kind of going a little ahead, but I don't mind. It's a great question. Does anybody have Sebastian Pohl's book right now? If you do, can you open it? I had called them up, and apparently it's out of print, and before the end of this year, he's releasing part 2. So if you do have this book, I'd like you to open it right at the end where the formulas are given. For example, let's look at the formula that is, all these formulas have been given in the Ayurvedic texts. How much angul, so how much milligrams, how much angul is to be used. And when these formulas were written in the Ayurvedic text, it was assumed that everything was organic, no pesticides were used, and it was picked and harvested when it was ripe at the right time. They assumed it, but obviously it's not the same. Not all herbs are organic now. Ideally, you should be harvesting the herbs when. So in the Ayurvedic text, it talks about when is the right time to harvest the herb and what time of day. For example, some herbs are harvested on Vasanta Panchami, particular tithi and astrological tithi that we use. So if you look at the book, it gives you a formula, for example. And we did Triphala, and I'm going to write Triphala Google. Who has this book? This is page, I don't know what page it is, 308. So we said 1 part. What is Triphala? Triphala is 1 part Haritaki, 1 part Bhibitaki. It is 1 part Amalaki. Right? So this was Triphala. Now to this Triphala we add 1 part long pepper. Long pepper is an herb called what is 27 times 138? So this would be about 5 times, 6 times. And so if you look at this, it's 1 part Haritaki. They have given it as 27 milligrams, so they've given you a formula for a 250 milligram tablet. 1 part Haritaki, 1 part Bibitaki, 1 part Amalaki. So if you're making a 500 milligram, you use another one. Then 1 part long pepper. 1 part long pepper is Pitali. It's a longish. It's from the pepper family. It comes. You see it in Kerala. It kind of looks like this. I don't know if that's the right way. It tastes like pepper, but it's very long. So that's what it looks like. It's a funny looking like this. And it has these thingies on it. I'm not sure if that's a good illustration, but you get the idea. It, like regular pepper is, it's a little, so the same texture, but it's longish. So you find it in India. It's called long pepper, and it's part of an herb called Trikatu, which is excellent for reducing ama and also excellent for kapha weight loss and kapha issues. So when you take Triphala Gugulu, which is one of the best herbs for cholesterol and reducing weight and reducing kapha, so this formulation is you have your Triphala, 1 part long pepper, and then you have 5 parts of Gugulu, approximately. Make sense? But how are you going to take it? How do you take it? At the end of the day, this is tridoshic, but how many things are in there that actually increase pitta? So long pepper is extremely heating, so you don't want to overdo it. So you give Triphala Gugulu to pitta person in smaller portions. So the dosage, because long pepper is very, very hot. And this particular Triphala Gugulu works on a lot of srotas. So it says here, Lekhana Shodhana, Bhagandar Shothagna, Astrogna, Sroturagna, alleviates obstruction to the channel. So it works on Pranavaha Srota, Raktavaha Srota, Annavaha Srota, and Purishavaha Srota. I also learned it works on Ambuvaha Srotas. So by this time, I'm assuming everybody's knowledge of all the srotas, all the dhatus, and all the upadhatus is up to mark. Because if you don't know, then Ayurvedic herbology does not make sense. So I'm assuming everybody knows all the srotas. So we have Triphala Gugulu here. And we are assuming everything has good. So what I do personally is I buy all these herbs from Banyan and I just mix them together. I mostly make 90% of the times make my own herb mix using this, unless somebody wants to take tablets or a capsule. Then I use either Maharishi Ayurveda herbs or other companies. I use Dog or Himalaya, so many herbs. Okay. Now let's move on to the kapha herbs. Okay. Did we finish the pitta herbs or not? I don't think we finished it. Okay. Amalaki, neem. Neem is one of the best herbs for both pitta and kapha, but it's very, very drying. Neem pretty much works on all the 7 dhatus. I think at least all the 7 dhatus, and it has an affinity for a few dhatus. Aloe is again one of the best herbs for pitta. Number 1, right there with Amalaki, because it's so astringent and it's so cooling and it goes directly to the dhatus. And aloe also works as an anupana. Coconut, even though coconut is food, I will usually give a lot of these herbs with coconut water, simply because you want to cool down the person. One of the best things for pitta person is rose jam. In Hindi, we call it gulukand. You can find rose jam. You can make your own rose jam. Midori has a recipe of rose jam she makes. I make my rose jam in summers because I get really fragrant roses. It's pretty easy to make. But you can also get rose jam from an Indian store or from Maharishi Ayurveda. You can also get organic rose water, very, very good for reducing the pitta dosha. Peppermint, bilva. Now, bilva, I think Aglo marmalus, I talked about this particular herb before. It has an affinity for reducing the Tikshnagni in bilva. Pomegranate, again, is very astringent. When a person is got a lot of Tikshnagni, malabsorption, and suffering from acute diarrhea, then we take rind of pomegranate, fresh rind of pomegranate, dry it, and make a paste out of it, and we give pomegranate rind. So it's a special formulation, but we give pomegranate seeds, pomegranate juice, very, very drying. Brahmi, again, is a nervine tonic because you want to calm down a pitta, sadhak pitta, the mind of the pitta person. Guduchi and Kalamegh. Guduchi and Kalamegh are very, very powerful for the liver. So this is also a liver balance formula. Guduchi is one of the best for the liver, especially for pitta. Kalamegh I will give to pitta in small amounts. But because the Ranjaka pitta resides in the liver, So Guduchi and Kalamnig are especially good for Ranjaka Pitta. Ashoka is one of the best herbs for Pitta women especially, but also for men. And I think I forgot one herb here is Arjuna, hypertension. Somebody with hypertension or high blood pressure who's a Pitta, Arjuna is a good. It has an affinity for the heart, and it has an affinity for blood pressure. But you want to make sure that people will come to you, they say, you know, should we start taking this, should we stop taking that? So you always want to read, you always want to tell the person not to stop taking what they're taking. They have to follow their doctor's order. Now turmeric is fantastic, but only small amounts for Pitta because turmeric is very heating and very drying. So it's the best herb for Kapha. It can be given in small amounts to Pitta and very, very, very small amounts to Vata. But if you want to give turmeric to Pitta Vata, you can combine it with, for Pitta, combine it with something cooling. For example, combine it with aloe. Aloe is very cooling, so it counteracts the heating and drying effect of turmeric. If you're giving it to a Vata person, add some ghee to it. It counteracts the drying effect of turmeric. So it's not just A is good and B is good and C is good, how you're combining it. Tulsi is such a tridoshic, amazing herb. I pretty much give it to everybody who comes. Except for Pitta person, I will give it in a tea Pitta, and Vata I give it in a tea form. Because Tulsi has this affinity for the lungs, it has affinity for pretty much quite a few dhatus, and clears out your srotas, clears the mind, helps the mind. Mahasudarshan is a formulation which is very scraping effect. It has a scraping. It's very good for giving to somebody who's ama. Again, given for both Pitta and Kapha, but it's so drying and scraping, you don't want to give it to a Vata person unless a Vata person has ama. Then you, of course, give Mahasudarshan, or you can give it to a Vata Pitta person. Shankapushpi is an excellent herb for migraines and headaches and Majjadhatu and nerves, but you do not want to give Shankapushpi if somebody is on sleep medication. So Rich asked me a question, why do a lot of massage oils use coconut as the base and say it's good for Kapha? I wouldn't really say coconut oil is good for Kapha. Unless this Kapha, if you were to use coconut oil for Kapha, obviously Kapha is in the summer season and their Pitta is up. You're trying to bring the Pitta down. But no, I wouldn't use coconut for Kapha. For Kapha, I would use a bitter, astringent oil like safflower or sunflower or mustard. Or I might not use the oil at all. Just do Garshana. Garshan means just do a dry rubbing without any oil. But if I'm going to use an oil for Kapha, unless their Pitta is up or it's very, very high summer season, I would not use coconut on them. But people do what they do. Kapha, everything should be drying, lightning effect. Kapha is pretty easy. You have your Brahmi, which is kind of has been used for Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Dry ginger. Why dry ginger? Because dry ginger will get rid of the Kapha ama, will get rid of congestion and sinus. It's called amapachan. Dry ginger eats away the ama. Turmeric, wet ginger, tulsi, chitra, all of these herbs have a very drying, lightning effect. For a Kapha person with weight gain, we also sometimes suggest chitrak. I take chitrak, I have my own formula. Gokshara actually has an affinity for the kidneys or the ambuvaha srotas. But Kapha have a lot of water in them, so Gokshara ultimately can be a good thing for them. Shardonika reduces the effect of sweets and is also given to people with diabetes in India. So, and Kapha will, even small amounts of sweet can aggravate Kapha. So to counteract the effect of sweet, sometimes Shardonika or Jamun is given. Then Trikatu, we'll talk about Trikatu in 1 second. Cayenne pepper, black pepper, kanchanar, raw honey, triphala, all very, very good. So ginger is a little pungent, especially if Vipaka is a little different. So you might want to give ginger in tea and add lots of sweet taste for Vata person. So one of the most important herbs, let's move to the whiteboard here. So for a Kapha person, one of the first herbs I give is, of course, Triphala. And if the Triphala is not working, I might give additionally Bibitaki as well. Or put Bibitaki in their Triphala. Or give it on the side. Usually, especially when this Kapha person has Ama or Agni issues, because all of these things increase the Agni. They balance the dosha, they balance the Agni. 3 means 3. 3 means 3. Katu means bitter pungents. 3 bitter pungents. 3 Katu. 3 bitter pungents. So you have dry ginger, 1 part. You have black pepper, 1 part. You have long pepper, 1 part. That's your Trikatu. Dry ginger, black pepper, long pepper. And it can also be given to Vata person, but of course Vata person you give smaller amounts and you might want to give it with ghee. And you might want to add something sweet to it to counteract the effect. And you definitely do not want to give this to a Pitta person or too much of it, because both black pepper and long pepper are extremely dry and ginger is pungent as well. So you will give it in very, very small amounts to Pitta, or might give with Pitta. In fact, I wouldn't just give it to Pitta at all. So Trikatu, there's Triphala, there's Gokshura has an affinity for kidneys, and Ambubaha Srotas, or the water srotas, it clears away. So someone, especially Kapha people, have a tendency to have congestion, and they will, so Gokshura also acts as a natural diuretic. Then you have Shardunika or Gymnema, which helps in sugar metabolism. So these are just some herbs. You know, there's so many, we have to cover so many. So we are just going through a few. So yeah, I would give a kapha. If you do not have long pepper, at least you can start taking dry ginger and black pepper in your tea or food every day. At least that can be started. All right. So we have done all these things for doshas. Now we are already helping a person balance their Agni. So what is the dosage? How do we give these herbs? We put a person on a diet, we balance their doshas, and then we balance their Agni. First we balance the dosha, we balance their Agni, or we balance their dosha and Agni together. Right? So we have found out a person has Visham Agni, or Tikshna Agni, or Manda Agni. When a person has Visham Agni, what kind of digestion and elimination will they have for Visham Agni? Visham Agni means the body is not producing enough digestive enzymes. So everything is about improving absorption, breaking down the nutrients, right? Breaking down the food into nutrients, so it's better absorbed by the body. So some of the herbs given to Vata for Vishama, even if constipation or dry hard stool, is Chitrak, fresh ginger, not dry ginger. Dry ginger will increase Vata, fresh ginger will decrease Vata, especially Vishama Agni. Lime, citrus roots. Citrus roots are made of the same material. They help in production of digestive enzymes. They're very cleansing for the digestive tract. Hingu. Now, Hingu is great, but it's very heating, so Pitta should take in very small amounts. There is something called a Hingavashtak Churnam. Has anybody heard of this? I think when you were here for the workshop, I made everybody taste it. Maybe it was another workshop. No? Hinga means Hingu. Ashtak means 8 types. So Hingu is 8 parts of Hingu is mixed with a few types of salts, and it's called Hingavashtak Churnam. Ashta means 8, Hinga means Hingu. 8 parts Hingu and I don't know, 2 parts rock salt. So it's called Hingavashtak. It's very heating, and it's usually given to a Vata person before a meal, during a meal, or after a meal. Just a little bit, and it helps in their digestion. Trikatu can be given to Vata, but smaller amounts. Cardamom helps in the production of digestive enzymes. It increases the Bodhak Kapha, increases the Kledak Kapha. Very, very good. Tulsi and Triphala, excellent for Vishama Agni. When a Pitta person has Tikshna Agni, they have 3 to 4 bowel movements, or maybe more, or maybe 2 to 3, but they're loose. And it's possible they might have malabsorption because everything is just going in and going straight out. And what is the first place you target for a Pitta? You target their liver, you target their Ranjaka Pitta, so you give them Guduchi. You give them Shatavari, it increases their Rasadatu. You give them Amalaki to reduce all of that heat from their body and the GI tract. You give them pomegranate juice, pomegranate seeds, you give them rose water, rose jam, and you give them this coriander, cumin, fennel seed tea, and also coriander, cumin, fennel in their food. You can give them cooling mint, coconut, and something called kutki. Now let's come to kapha. Everything that we talked about kapha in the previous slide, dravya for dosha, is similar for mandagini because all of them also increase agni. Mandagini, slow metabolism, heavy peristalsis, food moves very slowly. Triphala. How are we giving triphala to the vata person? With ghee. How, if we're going to give triphala to a pitta person, or we might give amalaki, we are giving it with aloe vera gel or coconut. How are we giving this triphala to kapha person? We are giving triphala with raw honey or hot water. Trikatu, chitrak, cinnamon, tulsi, ginger, dry ginger, white ginger, both, cardamom. I would even put turmeric here actually for kapha. Turmeric would also help mandagini. And of course in the food, cayenne pepper, onions, garlic. Unless kapha is, tamasic mode, then you don't want to give them anything tamasic as well. So you want to take care that the food is more sattvic in that case. Any questions? And has anybody got any ugly issues right now? Pitta herb can be given with aloe vera gel, can be given with rose water, drops of rose water in regular water, can be given with coconut water, can be given with ghee, something cooling, especially aloe gel and coconut, cold pressed coconut oil. You can take cold pressed coconut oil, mix some amalaki in it, heat it, make a paste, eat that. The problem is, in America, everybody thinks, actually now it's in India as well, when we think of an herb or anything that helps or supports our health, we think of these tablets and capsules. Give me something to fix this. I will eat it and it will fix it. But, Ayurvedic herbs, you have to prepare them. You have to prepare. So how do we give them? In the first week, we give a small portion. Then we start with a small dosage, increase it to more dosage, and we end with a small dosage. So you start with a small dosage, maybe once a day, and then you increase it 3 times a day, and then you again make it once a day. Once a day, 3 times a day, again once a day. Make sense? And also what time you're giving. If you're giving it to a kapha person who has mandagini, obviously you want them to have some of these things when the agni is highest. You might want to give them in the morning a little bit, and you want to give them in pitta time, really increase the agni going and take the health of of the pitta time. And if the constitution is good, you might want to give them without any food, because when there's no food in the body, then the action of these herbs is strongest. But the action of these herbs can also have some side effects in a vata person or pitta person or a person whose constitution is not very strong. So you have to look at the constitution of a person too. Okay. So you want, if you're a pitta vata person with indigestion, then possibly this is to do with your environment and diet. And I would give you some herbs for, and make sure that these things like coriander, cumin, fennel, pomegranate, mint, coconut is part of your diet. But yeah, you want to take your herbs in the Kasa time and the Vata time. Now, this is very, very important. I'm just giving you a very small overview here. Does anybody know? So when you give herbs for Vata or Pitta or Kapha, they may be different than herbs that are given for Ama. And can anybody tell me why that is? Why is that? When a person has Mandagini or the Shamagini and the Agni has been displaced, and then their body has a lot of Ama, especially this Ama is in the deep into the Dhatus. For example, Ama Vata is an Asti Dhatu. Then getting the Ama up, you definitely need to end up doing Panchakarma for these people. It's hard. Yeah, Ama can cause malabsorption. Somebody is asking me the question. So these are just some ideas. All of this I will put up in the herbology. So if somebody has Amavata, there's another name for Amavata. It's called rheumatoid arthritis. So Dr. Sahana will be doing clinical management of diseases, Chikitsa. I think it's in March for classes, not even Feb. And then that is for Ayurveda wellness practitioners only. And then we will go deeply into each disease and what treatment protocols with what formulation, what week. So you have Yogaraj Gugulu or Mahayogaraj Gugulu formulation for Amavata, which is pretty important. Who has that book? Sebastian Pohl's book. So if you have that book, you can look at page number 310. It talks about Gugulu, especially Yogaraj Gugulu. And I'm just going to read from there. Srotas, the Astivaha Srotas, it's clearing the Srotas before the Astivaha Srotas. It's clearing the Medavaha Srotas. It's clearing the Srotas, and because it's Srota Rodha, and removing Vata. But I would even say that a lot of other therapies are needed to get the Ama from these deep tissues. And why is it Gugulu? Gugulu works on Veda Dhatu. But if there is a problem in Meda Dhatu, that's why there's a problem in Asti Dhatu. So Samavata Gugulu is very, very important. Then Trikatu can be also given, castor oil. And also when someone does Samavata, we sometimes ask them to drink ghee every day, not a teaspoon. Especially in India, these people they have lost so much weight, they're so thin, their just bones are protruding out, and they look dry. So you do a lot of abhyang. I'm not sure. Not with Ama. I don't think we do Ama. Yeah. If they have Ama, we don't do Abhyanga, but we give them ghee to drink. And eventually we do therapies that take the Ama and bring it out. Another thing that can be given is Triphala Gritam. So we made the Triphala. How many people have Triphala powder here? Then you ideally make Triphala ghee according to Bhaishajya Ratnavali. Bhaishajya Ratnavali is one of the Ayurvedic texts on Ayurvedic herbs. It gives us a formula that you have Triphala, Bringaraj, licorice, Kuduchi, Manjishta, Anantamula, which is banned, you can't even use it, and Devadaru. These are some of the herbs that are used in Triphala Ghritam. But I'm just asking to make one ghee. You can make a Triphala ghee, Brahmi ghee, or even a bitter. If you have all these herbs, make all these 3 ghees. So first, you know how to make ghee, or you can get ready-made ghee. Number 1, make a kashayam. Everybody knows how to make a kashayam with Triphala or Brahmi or bitters. I think everybody has already made a kashaya except for Krishan and Stacy, right? Kashaya is when you take 16 parts of water and you take 4 parts of herb and all of it condenses down. But we have done a shortcut and done 8 parts of water. You boil 8 parts of water and add 4 parts of herbs till it reduces to a very, very small amount. Ideally, it's 16 parts. We take 16 liters of water and 1 liter of herb and we combine them together till it reduces and make a kashaya. So with bitters, you can, if you have neem or turmeric or dry ginger, this will, neem or turmeric will actually just do as well. So neem or turmeric will do for bitters. Does anybody have neem or turmeric? You boil it. So the way you do it is, the first step is you take your herb, whether it's Triphala, Brahmi or bitter. You take, I'm telling you to make a kashaya, take 8 parts of water with 4 parts of herbs. Sorry, 4 parts of herbs, yes. But ideally, to make it best, you need 16 parts of water, boiling water, and 4 parts of herbs. And you can adjust the ratio according to whatever. And you boil it down till only half a cup remains. Very, very small amount remains. So you can reduce, so this is using this 16 to 4 parts. So for bitters, you can use neem and turmeric, 2 parts neem and 2 parts turmeric. If you do not even have neem, just use turmeric. So you left the water and make a kashaya. Everybody else knows how to make a kashaya. Now, mix kashayam, this condensed kashayam with ghee. Put on low heat for a few. Very, very low heat. If you have a stove which has this cooking range, which is a very small, low flame, then it's perfect. Lowest possible heat for a couple of hours till all the water, or if you're going to do it another way, you have to make sure till all the water evaporates pretty much. The water should evaporate. So you mix your condensed kashayam, whether it's Triphala ghee or Brahmi ghee or bitter ghee, whatever kashaya you've made. So Krishan and Stacy, you have 2 assignments. You have to send me a picture of your kashaya as well as your ghee, because everybody else has already made a kashaya. Everybody else send me a picture of your ghee only. So you make a kashaya with either with Triphala, Brahmi or bitter using 16 to 4 principle, and it is boiled down to a very small amount, and it's become thicker. Now you mix this condensed kashayam with ghee and put on very low heat till all the water evaporates. Really, it's still a little bit watery. Oh yes, kashaya simply means it's a decoction. It's a very thick decoction. You have liquid left. You have a very small, maybe an ounce or 2 ounces of liquid left. So you mix this few ounces with the ghee and you put it till all the water should evaporate from the kashayam in the ghee. Now the ghee and the kashayam, how much ghee do we use? You can use 3 parts ghee with 1 part kashaya. Yes, you can use 3 parts ghee and 1 part kashaya. Usually I change this ghee for, usually I'm making just for a vata person, then I will use 3 parts ghee and 1 part kashai. If I'm making it for a kapha person, I use 1 part ghee, 1 part kashai. If I'm making it for a pitta person, I use 2 parts ghee. But we are assuming this is going to be mostly for a vata person. This is why we give more ghee to vata. If you're going to make a bitter one, then you use 2 parts ghee, because the bitter one will be probably given to a pitta person. This is my formula and my guru's formula that I'm giving you. So we are actually taking liberties with what's given in Bhaishajya Ratnavali, because actually Triphala ghee also has Guduchi and Manjishta. If you are making this Triphala ghee for a pitta person, then please add something that is affinity for the liver. Then you can add Guduchi and you can add Manjishta. But we are assuming we are making this Triphala ghee. So we are actually taking liberties with what's given in Bhaishajya Ratnavali. And this Triphala ghee is excellent for eyes, conjunctivitis, night blindness, and it pretty much reduces a lot of doshas. And if somebody is both vata and kapha, Triphala ghee can also be given. But then you might want to add some. What I do is I'll take, for a kapha person, I'll take Triphala ghee, add Guruchi, Manjishta, also add some Brahmi bitters or in the ghee. Then a person is both vata and kapha issues. Okay. Have you had enough? Should I go on? I can go on. This is my favorite subject. Okay. All right. So we moved to Pitta Ama. So we did, when you came for the December 17th workshop, we talked about the color of Ama as it shows on the tongue. So you guys can tell me, what does Kapha Ama look like on the tongue? What does Kapha Ama look like on the tongue? It's very white, it's very thick. What can a Pitta Ama look like? It is yellowish, and the tongue can be very, very red also. And you can see that Pitta has moved to Rasadhatu as well. It's very red, and there are these little dots. I can't think of an English word right now. You know, it's hard to think in Sanskrit, Hindi, and English at the same time. So Ama Vata is very chalk brown, usually in the Vata area, in the Kapha area of the tongue, in the Pitta area of the tongue, in the Vata area of the tongue. And also you might see a lot of cracks, especially cracks down the middle, cracks on the side of the tongue. You can see signs of malabsorption as well. And sometimes you can see a combination of Amavata and Amakapha, or a combination of Pitta Ama and Amavata as well. If you're looking at if you remember, we had divided the tongue into 3 zones, the Ama zone, the Pitta zone, and the Kapha zone. Then we had divided the tongue into different organs, and the different zones are showing different things. So once you know that that is there, you can start a person on clearing their Ama first. Always start from a low dosage, increase it, and then end on a low. When a person has Sama Pitta, they have Pitta Ama. So for example, if you have Pitta Ama in your lungs, then the lungs are inflamed. And if you have phlegm with it, the phlegm will be a little yellowish in color. Also, your feces will be different. The urine will be very yellow in color as well. And your sweat will be very toxic. The sweat is very toxic. So when you have Ama, whether it's Ama Vata, Ama Pitta, Ama Kapha, it is showing in your tongue. It is showing in your mudra. It's showing in your mutra as urine, it's showing in your feces, and also it's showing in your sweat. The sweat is very toxic and it smells. Also, a person might have a foul smell in the mouth if they have ama. So the minute a person walks in the door, you can smell the ama in their mouth. You know person is ama. You can immediately start them on a cleansing diet and some herbs that eat away the ama. So how do we know a person has ama? You look at their mala. You look at their elimination. You also look at their, you can look at their nails, you can look at their tongue. Of course, when you are checking their pulse, you will see it's a very obstructed pulse, or it feels obstructed as well, because the throat is obstructed. And also it will show, we have a test that we do in Ayurveda with the urine. We take a drop of sesame oil and use it, and it's, when you come for the next workshop, I'll show you. Okay, now manjishta is a very, very good herb for pitta in rakta dhatu. Also pitta ranjak pitta as well. It clears away the heat in the rakta dhatu, the ama in the rakta dhatu. Neem is clears away ama in rakta dhatu, in rasa dhatu, in mamsa dhatu. So it's amazing. Even in shukra dhatu in some cases. Aloe is so amazing. It will clear away a lot of throtas. It takes away all of these herbs. When you talk about ama, not only are they reducing heat, but they're having a very scraping effect. So ama is these fat soluble or water soluble food molecules that has gone and attached itself deep into the tissues. And you need an herb that has a scraping effect. So it is called lekhaniya. It is something that goes and scrapes away. So it is like a little shard of, when we have stuff sticking onto when we are trying to, I don't know if you've ever tried to clean wood, but if you've got stuff sticking, you can scrape it off. So you're just scraping it off. Mushta is another amazing, beautiful. How much aloe can a pitta person take? When you start a person on aloe, you always start small. Then you increase the dosage depending on how much, what is your intention? Is it just whether a person has ama or no ama? Only if a person has a lot of ama, you increase the dosage. Otherwise, you keep it very small. Then we have kutki, coriander, cumin, fennel, cinnamon, daru, haridra, sweet turmeric ghee. So the same bitter ghee that we talked about, but we also want to add some sweet to it. So pitta tea, lassi, whey, warm water. If a kapha is ama, so usually when we talk about ama, we mean kapha has ama. And this ama resides in the GI tract. This ama is usually in the liver or the rakta dhatu. This is usually in asti dhatu. Ama vata will go to the asti dhatu. Pitta ama is usually in the liver. There's stuff sticking in the liver that needs to be cleansed. And kapha ama is usually in the lungs or in the GI tract. Ama vata can also be in the colon or the bowels. Pitta ama can also be in the intestines. Kapha ama usually again in lungs or in your GI tract, especially in the stomach. So when we are removing ama, which place, which zone are we removing ama from? When a person has kapha ama, they have very thick white mucus or sometimes green mucus. When a person has pitta ama, their mucus is yellow. So sama kapha, trikatu, triphala, punarnava. We talk about all these herbs in detail later. Gugulu, tulsi, cumin, fenugreek is one of the best herbs for kapha, dry ginger, turmeric, bibitaki, kapha tea, and hot water. Hot water, hot water. If nothing else, just drink hot water. Where is amavata? Amavata can be found in dhatus, many dhatus. It can go anywhere, but usually it is found in the asti dhatu. In the asti dhatu. Now, dravya for women. Very important for women. So it's the same, sweet, sour, salty, rasa, warming, vira, the same thing we talked about before. So let's talk about shatavari. Shatavari is Indian asparagus. It's not the same as asparagus found in America or Europe. It's a different kind of asparagus. It has an affinity for increasing the rasa dhatu. So if a woman has issues in shukra dhatu, we give shatavari. If a man has issue in shukra dhatu, we give kapikachu. For women, shatavari. For man, kapikachu. And it has an affinity for shukra dhatu, especially ovaries. And it's not drying. In fact, it increases ojas. And it also increases rasa dhatu. That means we cannot give it to kapha person because kapha person already has enough rasa dhatu in them. But if you do give it to kapha person, we mix it with other kapha pacifying herbs. So, but shatavari can be given to pitta person because when rasa dhatu has increased agni, when pitta has traveled to rasa dhatu, by giving shatavari we can calm it down, especially when it's combined with aloe and rose and manjishta. It should not really be given to kapha person unless they're also kapha pitta or kapha vata. Or if you are giving shatavari to a kapha person, especially a kapha woman, you want to make sure that you're putting the other herbs that pacify kapha or negate the effect of shatavari in their case. Lotus. So I think only Krishan, you attended our Ayurvedic cooking workshop, baby. Midori had made these lotus roots vegetable. So lotus roots is an affinity again for the female reproductive system. Excellent for vata, excellent for pitta. Avoid giving into kapha because it increases kapha. Amalaki. Amalaki is sweet, sour, bitter. It is excellent for both vata and pitta, especially for pitta. Also can be given to kapha in small amount, but in this case we are giving more for the women issues. Amalaki is also given to pitta women, especially in menopause. Let's look at saffron. Saffron is VK minus. So saffron is given here to vata women. Saffron is given to pitta. All of these, by women I mean dysmenorrhea, menorrhea, endometriosis, heavy menstrual bleeding, PMS, menopause, post-menopause. I am including all of these things. It's a very generic slide here. So all of these women issues are included. So saffron, both vata and kapha, is VK minus. Shatavari is PV minus, but K plus. And saffron is VK minus, but P plus. But it does not mean you don't give it to pitta. When you do, remember Ayurveda is all about formulation. You add something that negates the heating effect of saffron. So lotus is again, lotus is PV minus K plus. Amalaki is again PV minus, but can be given to kapha in small amounts. Then you have rose. Rose can be given to both pitta and kapha, but pitta mostly not so much to kapha because rose is definitely astringent, but it's also cooling a little bit. So because it's also astringent, you can give it to kapha, but it's cooling, so not too much. Aloe, again, it has an affinity for drying out heavy bleeding. So aloe is excellent. Manjishta again, pitta and rakta dhatu, pitta artavasrotas. Both pitta and kapha, Ashoka can be given. It is PK minus, but it increases vata. Ashoka is very drying herb. It has such a super affinity for the female reproductive system, but it's so drying. So you don't really want to give it to a vata woman. Vata woman, just shatavari. But we do give it to a vata pitta or a vata kapha woman, but in very small amounts. Then you have safflower. Safflower is bitter, so it is PK minus. Mushtaka or mushta, again for female issues, again it's PK minus. Punarnava, here it is. Punarnava, where did it go? Here it is. Again, Punarnava is PK minus. Astringent, drying. Vidari is here and here. Vidari is PV minus. And of course, you follow the same principle. Before you tackle a woman's heavy bleeding issues, make sure you balance their Agni first. Always balance the Agni and Ama before you move on to these Rasayanas. Should we finish or should we move on? Too much. Okay, I think you want to finish. So I'm going to put this presentation up in the Dravya module. And this is your homework. Make a ghee, either Triphala ghee or Brahmi ghee or bitter ghee. You can use for bitter ghee neem or turmeric. For Brahmi ghee, just Brahmi and ghee. For Triphala ghee, you can use just Triphala and ghee or Triphala, Guduchi and Mujista. And the best way to make is make a small kashaya. Use 16:4 ratio number. Make a kashaya till only 1 or 2 ounces are left. And then mix the condensed kashaya with ghee. Remember, nobody